It is the most fascinating mystery of the 20th century. Dozens of books have been written through the years, some about really stupid ideas and others some very serious investigations, but nobody knows what happened. Maybe we do. Hi everybody, I'm Speedylee. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan still makes the news sometimes. Someone claims to have the answer to the mystery and doesn't. In the late 1960s, more than 30 years after the disappearance, someone wrote a book claiming that Earhart was still alive and living in New Jersey. Well, if she was still alive today, Amelia Earhart would be 126 years old. Let's put that one to rest. Earhart was a pioneer aviatrix. She was among the best pilots in the world at the time, 1937. She and Noonan were trying to fly around the world at the equator at the time of her disappearance. You can find information about her career and about Fred Noonan easily online, and I encourage you to do so. Both were important figures in the history of long-distance flight. For the sake of brevity, I'll skip to the finish. Earhart and Noonan were trying to fly a twin-engine Lockheed Electra 2,556 miles from New Guinea to the island of Howland, which is just a tiny speck in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, back in 1937, and they never arrived at Howland. They got close enough at the end of the flight that Amelia's radio signals were registered at strength 5, that's the strongest, by a U.S. Coast Guard cutter that was assigned to the island to help the Earhart effort. Her radio signals indicate that the plane was very close to Howland at the end of the fuel capacity. We know something now that Noonan, the navigator, did not know. The chart that they used to plot their Howland flight was not accurate. Howland was about 5 miles away from the spot that Fred Noonan was aiming for. We know exactly how much fuel the plane carried, so we know about how long she could expect to stay in the air. Amelia's final radio signal came at about the end of the best-case scenario for her fuel use. I'll repeat this. She was virtually out of fuel when she was very close to Howland. She could not have flown to another island in the Pacific, known as Gardner Island at the time, because that island is 400 miles away from Howland. It was Howland or bust for Earhart and Noonan, and when they ran out of fuel, they went bust. There is a persistent school of thought that Earhart was somehow rescued and taken to Saipan Island. Saipan was held by the Japanese in 1937, and the story goes that Noonan was beheaded and Earhart died of disease. There is no evidence for these theories, except that some of the residents of the island at that time said in the 1960s that there was a white woman flyer and a white man on Saipan in the summer of that year. Hard to figure who else it might have been than Earhart and Noonan, but other than those testimonies, there is no proof for the Saipan theory. What probably happened was this. Earhart and Noonan reached a point where they could see the spot on their chart that Noonan was aiming for, but there was no island. Howland must have been just far enough to the west of their aiming point that they could not see far enough east to see the island and the smoke that the Coast Guard cutter was belching out of its smokestacks, trying to help them find the island. The curvature of the earth must have played a role as well in their inability to find the island. As Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote in the Sherlock Holmes mysteries, if you eliminate the impossible, only the possible remains. Once they reached the Howland area, Earhart and Noonan could not have flown anywhere else. Earhart was a good pilot. Noonan was a good navigator. The Electra was a good airplane. They had a bad chart. They did not carry a life raft because they preferred to carry a few extra pounds of gasoline instead. So now you know. I'm Speedylee, and I'll see you next time.